Hi guys. So I recently put up a quote on my Instagram that says, isn't that quote so true? In fact, after I put it up, I Googled on YouTube blind people describing color, and sure enough, there were a few videos where people that were blind were explaining how impossible it is for them, if they've always been blind, to be able to describe color because they have no reference point. Well, guess what? People that grew up with toxic parents, whether they were intentionally toxic or simply parents that grew up themselves in a toxic environment and never did the inner work to heal it and therefore stop the generational abuse, they often pass down a lot of that dysfunction to their children. And if a child grew up without experiencing healthy dynamics by their parents, then they often don't know what self-love looks like. Some parents teach kids that self-love is selfish. Some make their children feel bad if they think of themselves at all. So if you grew up with that unhealthy dynamic or that unhealthy view of what self-love really is, and then you wound up, like a lot of people that wind up repeating toxic relationships, thanks to repetition compulsion, they wind up in relationships that mimic the same dynamics as in childhood. So now they're in an adult relationship where self-love is distorted, where love itself is distorted, whether it's with yourself or with someone else. So what happens is people wind up in a toxic relationship, and at some point they get out and they're looking up information on how to heal. And they come across a lot of videos that talk about the need to put the focus on you, the need to increase your self-love. And a lot of people are like, what does that even mean? What is self-love? And why is it so hard for me to be able to start implementing all these goals that prove that I have self-love? Well, if you've been through toxic relationships, whether they're with parents, whether they're with significant others, close friends, coworkers, and you're battling how to exercise self-love, you're going to want to watch this video. After learning and looking up information on exactly what self-love is, most people will then take the step to make goals, make smart goals that allow them to start implementing or putting into practice the information that they're learning. When I first started healing, these are examples of some goals that I would try to make a part of my life, but this is what would happen day after day. So what happened? I researched what self-love is, right, which is giving me a reference point. It's needed. I can't exercise self-love if I really don't understand what healthy self-love looks like, but I did that. I got my reference point. I even made awesome goals, right, realistic, measurable, smart goals. I did that. I set intention for the next day, and then I failed. Why? Why did that happen? If this is happening with you, I'm going to explain it hopefully in a really clear, easy way so that you can understand, because it's this part that we need to understand in order to start changing our self-love, or actually anything that we want to change. We have to understand this. Put simply, our brain is a cybernetic mechanism, which sounds complicated, but really what it means is it's an automatic system. It operates automatically, right? We don't have to program breathing with ourselves. We don't have to program digestion. We don't have to program how often we blink so that our eyes don't dry out. There's so much of our brain that functions automatically. It's very similar to a heating system or a cooling system in your home. So this is the part that helps us to understand why, when we set goals, why we're not able to follow through. And in this case, we're talking about the goals that are about self-love. So think about being in your house and it's winter time. If you live in the north in the United States, it's winter time and your furnace is set at 62. Anyone knows that's lived in the cold that setting your furnace to 62 in January, you're gonna freeze. Okay, that's just a fact. But imagine me sitting in my house, right, next to the temperature gauge of my furnace, and I see that it's set low, right, and I'm freezing. What would happen if I sat there, I see the temperature where it's at, and my conscious mind is saying, I want the house to be warmer. I just want the house to be warmer. And now I'm visualizing the house warmer. I'm using a visualization technique and I'm like visualizing it. I want the house warmer. And that's not working. So now I'm gonna use affirmations. The house, I know that my house can be warmer. I know that my house can be warmer. I know that my house can be warmer. And I'm like saying it over and over, or I'm writing it down over and over. And nothing is still happening. If you saw me trying to make my house warmer while the temperature gauge is right there, but I'm not touching the temperature gauge. I'm doing this all, trying to do this with my conscious mind, my conscious awareness, right? You would think I was kind of losing it. And I would probably agree with you. Because the truth is, no matter how much I want it on a conscious level, if I do not change the programming on the unit, then I could want it forever and I'm never going to get the house warmer. I need to change what it's programmed at. It's the same thing with us, with the way our mind works. We may want things on a conscious level. When I look at that list may be everything I want on a conscious level. But if it is out of alignment with my subconscious programming, where maybe, sadly, due to toxic relationships, maybe the beliefs in there are, I'm not worthy to give myself time, or I don't deserve to give myself time, or that's selfish to give so much time and attention to yourself. If those are my beliefs, what will happen is your brain, whether you realize it or not, will sabotage every effort that you make that puts it out of alignment with that belief system. This is why increasing self-love is a two-step process. The first step is learning about what healthy self-love looks like. It's learning to identify the difference between maybe your toxic upbringing, the things you thought were normal, compared with what healthy behavior, what healthy self-love looks like. That's the first part. But people wind up stopping at that part, and they make their list of goals, they make their SMART goals, and then they change for a little bit. They see a little bit of a change in their life, and then boom, something happens where they self-sabotage, and they bring themselves back to exactly what the programming was before, which is the same thing with the furnace, right? So let's say now we're in the summertime, and it's really hot outside, and my AC is set at 70, 72, okay? But if somebody opens the door and now all that hot air is coming inside, does my AC unit automatically kick on? No. It takes a little bit of time for the unit to detect a deviation. But once it does detect that deviation in temperature, it kicks on and brings the house to the programmed temperature. It's the same thing with our subconscious. We may not self-sabotage automatically, although oftentimes we do. But sometimes we get to go maybe a month, maybe 2 months with a certain positive behavior that we're starting to change. But if we haven't worked at it on the deeper end, in our subconscious mind, in our subconscious programming, eventually our subconscious mind is going to detect a deviation, and it'll bring us right back where we were before. So the second part of being able to increase self-love after toxic relationships is learning how to get your subconscious to work with you instead of against you, and that is my next video. So if you're new to this channel and you like learning about doing the inner work to heal, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button, and stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to give you 2 awesome, powerful tips on changing the beliefs that are lodged in your subconscious mind.